Hi everyone, welcome to Y Camp. My name is Marissa and today we're here at beautiful YMCA Cedar Glen Outdoor Center, which is located in Schaumburg, Ontario. Today we are going to be working together on learning about maps and how we use maps and why maps are important to us. But before we get started with that, we'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the land that we're on here today. So we recognize that YMCA Cedar Glen is situated on the traditional territories of Indigenous peoples that lived and still live around the Great Lakes. This parcel of land was part of the European Treaty Number 13, which is also known as the Toronto Purchase. We recognize it also under the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Treaty, which was created by distinct Indigenous nations living around the Great Lakes to peaceably share and care for the land and its resources. Before we start learning about maps and how to use them in our life, I wanted to start with a quick riddle for you. It's just a short one today, but the question is this: where can you find streets, stores, shops, roads, and parks, but no people? So think about that one as we are working together today, and I'll make sure to tell you the answer at the end of our video. In order to participate along with us today, you won't actually need too much. You'll just need a paper and something to draw with, either a pencil or a pen or markers if you want to color. And then you may also, there's a challenge level in the activity. Not everyone has to do it, but if you want to try it, you might need a ruler or a measuring tape. So pretty easy to participate along with us today as we learn about maps. There are all kinds of different maps, and reading maps is really important. We might think that because many of us now have cell phones or access to GPS in our cars or different things like that, we don't need to learn to read maps anymore. But there are still lots of times in your life where you'll need to be able to read a map. One of them being maybe when you're on a canoe trip at camp. Another time might be when you're in the mall, for example. This is a type of map. This is a map of the West Edmonton Mall. Shout out to anybody in Edmonton or Alberta right now watching along with us. And if you were at the West Edmonton Mall and you wanted to figure out how to get from, the Galaxyland Amusement Park, that sounds fun, over to the World Water Park, you would need to read the map to find the way there. So that's one time you might use a map. Another time you might use a map in your everyday life is when you're on the subway. So this is a shout out to folks in the GTA or Toronto who might be riding the Toronto Transit. This is a map of Toronto subway. So if you had to figure out how to get from York University stop to the Main Street stop, you would need to be able to read this map to figure out how to do that. So that's just two examples of times where you might use a map in your everyday life. There's lots of different types of maps, and there's lots of different ways to use them. You're probably all familiar with this map. Anybody know what that one is? It's a great country, the map of Canada. And certainly it's very what we call small scale. You can see all of Canada on that. And then you might look at different places up close. So for example, anybody know what this is a map of? It's a great province on the East Coast. It's Nova Scotia, shows all the towns. And we're gonna go all the way to the West Coast for a lovely map of Vancouver Island. So lots of different types of maps out there that you can learn to read and learn to use to help you in your everyday life. All right, so we're doing a bit of a different shot so you can see this map that I'm working on here in front of me on my picnic table. And as you can see, this is a map of our camp, our outdoor center here at YMCA Cedar Glen. And I wanted to tell you a few things about maps. So there are some things that all maps have in common, some special items that are on them. The first is a title. So this one, obviously it tells you that we're at YMCA Cedar Glen. The next thing that all maps have in common is a north arrow or a compass rose. And it might be on different spots around the map. In this case, it's down here in the corner. And this tells you that the top of the map is north, because you can see north is at the top of the compass rose. Another really important thing for a map to have is a legend, which you can see right here. And the legend tells you all the different symbols on the map. The legend tells you what they are. So for example, if I'm wondering what this red box with a campfire in it would be, I would look on the legend and see that, oh, that stands for a campfire. So wherever I see one of those red boxes, there would be a campfire. You can see we have a creek running through our property, which is the blue line. We have lots of other features on here as well. An organic farm, which you can see up here, and lots of different things. So when you're working with a map, those are the common things that you'll want to include and look for to help you use the map properly. Another really important thing about a map is the scale. Now this is difficult to understand. So if you don't quite understand it, that's okay, but it might be a good challenge for some of our older campers. So for example, we have this map of Canada, and this is what we call a small scale map. So that means that it's really far zoomed out. You can see all of Canada, right? And if we wanted to look at the Cedar Glen map, which would be like right here, a tiny little part of this huge map, we have it here. So it's much more zoomed in. So that's the scale. So if you look here at the scale, that's what this little line is. This scale shows you that about 2 centimeters on the map is represented by about 50 meters in real life. Do you see that? So the distance between 0 and 50 on the map equals a meter, or 50 meters in real life. So in this instance, you can see that the distance between 0 and this mark right here is 500 kilometers in real life. So if I measure that with my finger, it's about that far. So it's about 500 kilometers when you see that far on the piece of paper. So that's certainly something that's a little bit tricky to understand, but if you are a more advanced or older camper, that's an important concept for you to know as we learn about maps. So once you know a little bit about how to read a map by using things like the title, the scale, and the legend, you can start to figure out how that map relates to what you're seeing around you. And once you figure that out, then you can use the map to help you find your way. So in this case, if I wanted to figure out where I was on this map, I might look around me and see what I recognize. And if I look over my shoulder over there, I can see the Hoop Hut. That's a building here on our property, and it has a funny name called Hoop Hut. It has a round roof, that's why. So I look in the legend for the Hoop Hut, and I can see it H, and then I look on the map till I find the H right there. So I know I'm somewhere in this area. Other things I can see on the map are this road, and I can see it in front of me, so that's good for me to know. And I also see our swimming pool, which is this black, it says Valley Pool, and it's right there, and I can also see it just in front of me. So now what I want to do, which is kind of tricky without using a compass, is turn this map so it's reflecting what I see around me. So it's straight in front of me right now, but the Hoop Hut is actually over my right shoulder. So I might want to turn it a bit so the Hoop Hut is right. And now I look straight out in front of me and I see this road. So it needs to be in front of me. So I see the Hoop Hut, and beyond the Hoop Hut, the pool, and beside the pool, the road. And that's actually exactly what I see around me right now. So I can tell that I'm probably right about right here on the map. And I've oriented it so that if I were standing here on the map and looking for it, I should be able to find down here the main road and what some of these different other features are. It looks like another fire pit and a big A, which I think means adventure course. Yes. So those sorts of things are in front of me. If I wanted to get from where I am right now to, let's say, the adventure course, this A, I would know, well, I'd have to follow the trails, but I know it's in the direction straight in front of me, and then I could follow this trail to get there. If I wanted to find, let's say, the organic farm, which is this little barn symbol, I know that it's behind me. I need to walk behind from the way I'm facing right now to head towards the farm. I know that if I were to go to my left, I would run across, down the road across this trail right here, and then eventually to our main road. And if I were to go to our right, I would end up at this M, which is our maze. It's just over in the shadows or in the trees to my right. So that is how you orient a map. You have to use the clues that you can see around you to turn the map so you know that what's around you is reflected or matches on the map. That's called orienting a map, and it's a really important skill. If you've been following along, you've got some basic map skills now. You know how to read a map using the different things, the title, the legend, and you know how to orient a map to reflect what's around you and help you find your way. So now it's time for a challenge. And I challenge you to make a map and get a family member or a friend or a sibling to use your map to find a secret location that you've chosen. So you could, for example, draw your neighborhood and draw a trail that somebody would need to follow with an X, almost like a treasure map of where you would like them to go. Or if you're just staying at home today, you could draw a map of your house and maybe hide a small toy like a Lego figure or something like that somewhere in the house, and draw a map to help a family member find that item. If you want an increased level of challenge, I would challenge you to draw that map to scale. So for example, if you are in your house and you wanted to draw a map to scale, you would decide what your scale was. I would recommend you use a graph or a gridded paper. It will make it much easier. And you'll decide one grid on the paper represents how much in real life. So if you were to say one grid on the paper equals 1 meter in real life, you would then measure a room, let's say your living room, let's say it's 3 meters long by 2 meters wide. You would make the living room on your map 3 squares long and 2 squares wide, because your scale is 1 square equals 1 meter. So if you're looking for another level of challenge, I would challenge you to draw your map to scale. And if you want to just try drawing a map of your neighborhood or your yard and not worry too much about scale, you can totally do that as well. Make sure that when you give the map to your family member or sibling or whoever's going to use it, you teach them about how to orient that map so they can find their way. You'll also want to make sure your map includes all the important things: a title, a legend, if you want a scale, and if you can figure it out, also a north arrow. You might be able to ask an adult to help you figure out which way is north, or maybe you already know. Hopefully you've had fun today learning and making some maps of your own. We wanted to remind you that if you're working towards your certification, you'll have to go to ymcahome.ca/ycamp to tell us about what you're working on and show us what you've done. Another reminder that you or your family can also donate to our camps this summer. There's a link on the Y at Home website as well. I wanted to, before I sign off, make sure I do the riddle with you. So my riddle, if you remember from the beginning, was what has streets and roads and stores and shops but no people? And I've hoped you've figured it out as we've learned more about maps. But maps have all of those things. So a map, for example, this map of Vancouver Island, you can see roads, you can see lakes, you can see where there might be beaches, you can see all kinds of things, but there's no people on here. So that is the answer to our riddle.